Dictation 9. Ready? Metaphysics, or the attempt to conceive the world as a whole by means of thought, has been developed. From the first, by the union and conflict of two very different human impulses, the one urging men towards mysticism, the other urging men towards science. Some men have achieved greatness through one of these impulses alone, others through the other alone. In Hume, for example, the scientific impulse reigns quite unchecked, while in Blake, a strong hostility to have science coexist with profound mystic insight. But the greatest men who have been philosophers have felt the need both of science and of mysticism. The attempt to harmonize the two was what made their life, and what always must, for all its arduous uncertainty, make philosophy to some minds a greater thing than either science or religion. Before attempting an explicit characterization of the scientific and the mystical impulses, I will illustrate them by examples from two philosophers whose greatness lies in the very intimate blending which they achieved. The two philosophers I mean are Heraclitus and Pluto. Heraclitus, as everyone knows, was a believer in universal flux. Time builds and destroys all things. From the few fragments that remain, it is not easy to discover how he arrived at his opinions. But there are some sayings that strongly suggest scientific observation as the source. The things that can be seen, heard, and learned, he says, are what I prize the most. This is the language of the empiricist, to whom observation is the sole guarantee of truth. The sun is new every day, is another fragment, and this opinion, in spite of its paradoxical character, is obviously inspired by scientific reflection, and no doubt seemed to him to obviate the difficulty of understanding how the sun can work its way underground from west to east during the night. Actual observation must also have suggested to him his central doctrine that fire is the one permanent substance of which all visible things are passing phases. In combustion, we see things change utterly, while their flame and heat rise up into the air and vanish. This world, which is the same for all, he says, no one of gods or men has made, but it was ever, is now, and ever shall be an ever living fire, with measures kindling and measures going out. The transformations of fire are first of all sea, and half of the sea is earth, half whirlwind. This theory, though no longer one which science can accept, is nevertheless scientific in spirit. Science too might have inspired the famous saying to which Plato alludes: you cannot step twice into the same rivers, for fresh waters are ever flowing in upon you. But we find also another statement among the exact fragments: we step and do not step into the same rivers, we are and are not. The comparison of this statement, which is mystical, with the one quoted by Plato, which is scientific, shows how intimately the two tendencies are blended in the system of Heraclitus. Mysticism is, in essence, little more than a certain intensity and depth of feeling in regard to what is believed about the universe. And this kind of feeling leads Heraclitus, on the basis of his science, to strangely poignant sayings concerning life and the world, such as time is child playing draughts. The kingly power is a child's. It is poetic imagination, not science, which presents time as despotic lord of the world. With all the irresponsible frivolity of a child, it is mysticism, too, which leads Heraclitus to assert the identity of opposites. Good and ill are one, he says, and again, to God all things are fair and good and right, but men hold some things wrong and some right. Much of mysticism underlies the ethics of Heraclitus. It is true that a scientific determinism alone might have inspired the statement, man's character is his fate, but only a mystic would have said, every beast is driven to the pasture with blows, and again, it is hard to fight with one's heart's desire. Whatever it wishes to get, it purchases at the cost of soul, and again, wisdom is one thing. It is to know the thought by which all things are steered through the things. Examples might be multiplied, but those that have been given are enough to show the character of the man. The facts of science, as they appeared to him, fed the flame in his soul, and in its light he saw into the depths of the world by the reflection of his own dancing, swiftly penetrating fire. In such a nature we see the true union of the mystic and the man of science, the highest eminence, as I think, that it is possible to achieve in the world of thought. In Plato, the same twofold impulse exists, though the mystic impulse is distinctly the stronger of the two and secures ultimate victory. Whenever the conflict is sharp, his description of the cave is the classical statement of belief in a knowledge and reality truer and more real than that of senses. Imagine a number of men living in an underground cavernous chamber with an entrance open to the light, extending along the entire length of the cavern in which they have been confined from their childhood, with their legs and necks so shackled that they are obliged to sit still and look straight forwards, because their chains render it impossible for them to turn their heads round and imagine a bright fire burning some way off, above and behind them, and an elevated roadway passing between the fire and the prisoners, with a low wall built along it, like the screens which conjurers put up in front of their audience, and above which they exhibit their wonders. I have it, he replied. Also figure to yourself a number of persons walking behind this wall, and carrying with them statues of men and images of other animals, wrought in wood and stone and all kinds of materials, together with various other articles, which overtop the wall. And as you might expect, let some of the passers by talking and others silent. You are describing a strange scene and strange prisoners. They resemble us, I replied. Now, consider what would happen if the course of nature brought them a release from their fetters and a remedy for their foolishness, in the following manner. Let us suppose that one of them has been released and compelled suddenly to stand up. Finished.